At my husband's funeral, my son-in-law grabbed my hand and said, "Your husband's pension belongs to us now." He took my purse and threw it in the fire. My daughter watched silently. As tears fell, I muttered, "You think you've won, but wait until tomorrow." I buried my husband last Thursday. Roanoke was gray and cold, just like the inside of my chest. 51 years. That's how long we were married. We had our ups and downs, sure, but he was mine and I was his. We met in 1972. I was working part-time at the JCPenney's downtown. He walked in looking for work boots and left with my number. That's how it started. We built everything from nothing. He worked at the Norfolk Southern Railway for almost 4 decades. Never missed a shift. He'd come home smelling like oil and steel, and I'd have the TV dinner ready and we'd sit and talk about small things. He didn't say much, but I always felt safe when he was in the room. When he passed, it was quick. A heart attack in his sleep. Peaceful, they said. I didn't feel peace. I felt rage. Not at him. At how unfair it all was. At how fast it all ended. At how many things were left unsaid. Rachel, our eldest, arranged most of the funeral. She and Marcus, her husband, seemed eager to take the lead. At first, I was grateful. Grief hits you sideways. It felt like I was underwater most days. But something about Marcus being around so much, it didn't sit right with me. He'd always been the kind to insert himself where he didn't belong. Always needing to control a conversation, control a room. I'd never trusted him, but I stayed quiet. For Rachel, that day, after the burial, we all came back to the house. A few family friends, some neighbors. Rachel said we should light a fire in the backyard. Something Dad would have liked, she said. And that was true. He loved fires. We'd spent so many nights around that pit, sipping hot cider, listening to the night. I sat down in the chair he used to sit in. I don't even remember how long I was staring at the flames. My purse was in my lap, and I was just holding it tight, like it could ground me. Then Marcus came over. He sat down too close, reached for my hand. At first I thought maybe he was trying to be kind, but his grip was firm, controlling. He leaned in, close enough that his breath hit my cheek, and he said, real quiet, "Your husband's pension belongs to us now." I froze. I didn't understand what he meant at first. Then, without warning, he snatched the purse from my lap and threw it into the fire. My whole body jolted forward. I screamed, "What are you doing?" But it was too late. The fire swallowed a whole. My phone, wallet, house keys, the small velvet pouch where I'd kept the diamond earrings my husband gave me on our 40th, gone. I looked at Rachel. She was standing there, not 5 feet away. She saw the whole thing. "Rachel," I said. He just threw my purse." She looked down. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just stood there like a statue. I felt something inside me crack. My daughter, my only living child. She just watched, didn't lift a finger. And Marcus, he was still sitting there like it was nothing. Like this was just another power play to him. I couldn't stop the tears. They poured down without permission. My hands were shaking, and all I could do was whisper, "You think you've won, but wait until tomorrow." Because I may be grieving. I may be old, but I'm not stupid. And I'm not helpless. That pension? It's not in his name. It's in mine. My husband made damn sure of that. And what they don't know is I've already spoken to a lawyer. Marcus thinks he's clever. He thinks by bullying me now, I'll hand over control. He thinks Rachel can guilt me into letting it happen. But they're going to find out what it feels like to rob the wrong woman. They set that fire, but I'm the one who's going to end it. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the living room. No pers. No phone. Just the sound of the old grandfather clock ticking in the corner. I stared at the empty fireplace mantel where his photo used to sit before they moved it for a cleaner look during the wake. Every detail started to feel like part of a plan. A quiet erasure. The next morning, I walked 2 miles to the bank. I looked a mess. No makeup, hair undone, wearing an old coat and slippers. But I didn't care. I just needed to confirm what I already suspected. I asked the teller to check my accounts. "Ma'am," she said, tapping away at her keyboard, "it looks like there's been some activity." She printed the statement. My stomach dropped. 3 large withdrawals. One for $10,000 labeled joint expense. Another for $7,500. And a third for $5,000. All within the last week. I never authorized any of it. I asked to speak to the branch manager. We sat in his office while he went over the transfers. Turns out, Marcus had somehow gotten access to our joint accounts. And he was clever about it. He used Rachel's name on the forms. Made it look like I had signed off. My own daughter forged my name. The manager said if I wanted to press charges, I'd need to file a police report. That's when I realized this wasn't just greed. This was a takeover. They weren't waiting for me to pass on, to inherit anything. They were trying to push me out now. Erase me. Strip me down until I had nothing left but dependency. They wanted the house, the pension, the car. They wanted full control. When I got home that evening, Rachel was waiting on the porch. She smiled like nothing had happened. I asked for my house key back. She said she didn't have it anymore. Said Marcus must have misplaced it. When I told her I knew about the bank accounts, her face didn't change. "You're grieving, Mom," she said. "You're not thinking clearly. We're just trying to help." That word, help. It tasted like poison. I asked her straight out, "Did you forge my name?" She didn't answer. She just looked away, like she did at the fire, like she always does when things get real. Marcus came out a moment later, holding a box. "Thought you might want some space," he said, smirking. "We packed a few of your things." My things. From my house. I told them both to leave, but Marcus leaned in and whispered, "You think the law is on your side? No judge is going to listen to a lonely old woman with no proof. We're family. This is what's best." I shut the door, locked it, called my lawyer from a neighbor's phone. And that night, I made 3 more calls to the credit union, the railroad pension office, and a private investigator I knew from church whose wife I once helped through cancer treatment. By Monday morning, I had frozen every account, locked down the pension, filed a fraud report. But I knew this wasn't over. Because Rachel and Marcus, they didn't back off. They escalated. They came back with paperwork, a legal document, a petition for conservatorship. Marcus had talked a doctor into signing off that I was mentally unfit due to grief trauma. They were trying to take legal control of me. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a fight over money. This was war. The petition for conservatorship was the moment I stopped playing defense. I'd spent too long grieving, too long trying to believe my daughter would come to her senses. But now I saw it clear. Rachel wasn't lost. She was in on it. All of it. From the bank fraud to the pension grab to the fire. She didn't just let Marcus do this. She wanted it. My lawyer, a sharp widow named Carol I met at a church legal aid event, filed a response that same day. She tore through their petition like a lion. She noticed something I hadn't caught. One of the doctors who signed the mental health assessment worked at a clinic Marcus used to volunteer at. It was the same clinic where his cousin worked, a guy named Kenny. Carol pulled records. That cousin wasn't just some clerk. He'd been investigated before for falsifying prescriptions. And Marcus? He had a history of helping family get things done. So we started digging. Carol had a contact at the Virginia State Medical Board. Within days, the affidavit submitted with my conservatorship petition was under review for fraud. That gave us a foothold. Enough to block the petition for now. But then, something I didn't expect. My neighbor, Gloria, came over one afternoon while I was out watering the azaleas. She asked if she could talk to me. She looked nervous. She said, "I didn't know if I should say anything, but I saw Marcus. He was parked outside your house last week, after midnight." I felt the air go out of my lungs. She said he was just sitting in his car, lights off, watching the house. She didn't call the police because she thought maybe he was just worried about me. But now, I think he was waiting to see if you were alone. I checked the locks that night. All of them. I stayed up till sunrise with the porch light on.
He didn't come back.
Not that night. But 2 days later, the gas line to my stove started leaking. The repairman said it looked tampered with. Said it was subtle, but obvious to someone trained. I filed a police report. I told them everything. The fraud, the threats, the gas line. But it was all circumstantial. No video.
No fingerprints.
No direct evidence. The officer, a younger guy with kind eyes, just said, "Be careful, ma'am. And don't be alone with him." I called Carol again. Told her we had to move fast. She agreed. And then she dropped the twist I never saw coming. Carol had subpoenaed Marcus's bank records. He wasn't just draining my money. He was gambling. Not little bets either. He was in deep with some offshore betting site. Tens of thousands. It looked like he had a debt with someone dangerous. Transfers to private wallets. Venmo notes disguised as car repair and trip refund. The pension wasn't for comfort. It was a bailout. My daughter knew. She had to. She'd helped him cover it up. She was keeping quiet for a reason, and I realized then Rachel wasn't protecting Marcus. She was protecting herself. She'd co-signed loans. She'd signed off on credit cards in his name. She wasn't just a victim. She was in this up to her neck. And if I didn't stop them soon, they weren't going to just steal my money. They were going to bury me too. I stopped sleeping through the night. Every sound made me jump. Every creak in the floorboards. Every car passing too slow outside. My nerves were shot. I kept a hammer by the bed. Not that it would have done much. But it made me feel like I wasn't completely helpless. Carol advised me to stay with someone else, just until the police could build a stronger case, but I refused. This was my house. My home. I wasn't going to let them drive me out like some squatter. Besides, I wasn't done fighting yet. The day after we confirmed the gambling debts, Carol filed a financial injunction. It froze Marcus and Rachel's personal accounts, temporarily. It wasn't easy. We had to prove they used funds fraudulently tied to me, and we had enough documentation now to scare a judge into action. That's when Rachel finally called. She hadn't spoken to me since the fire. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "What are you trying to do, Mom?" I didn't answer. I let the silence grow heavy. "You're destroying everything," she said. "We were trying to help you. You're not thinking clearly. You're not well." I said, "I know everything, Rachel.
I know about the accounts.
The signatures. The gas line. You stood there and watched him throw my purse into the fire. You didn't say a word. Don't talk to me about help." She went quiet. Then I heard it breathing. That little hesitation before the guilt catches up.
But it passed.
When she spoke again, she was cold. "You won't win this." Then she hung up. That same night, the investigator I'd hired came back with more.
Surveillance photo.
Screenshots. Proof that Marcus had met up with a man in a parking lot in Lynchburg, an enforcer tied to a known loan shark. Carol said it explained a lot. Marcus wasn't just in trouble. He was desperate. And desperate men don't walk away quietly. By that point, Carol had gotten enough together to begin building a criminal fraud case. We also filed for an emergency restraining order. But it didn't stop them. 2 nights later, I came home from the grocery store and saw the front door ajar. I froze. Inside, the house was quiet, but the kitchen drawers had been opened. Cabinets, too. Not ransacked, searched. They weren't after valuables. They were looking for documents. And they missed one. Tucked in the lining of the laundry room wall, a hidden envelope my husband left before he died. I'd found it months ago. It was full of handwritten notes, bank numbers, a will, and something else, a notarized statement witnessed that the pension and all assets were to remain under my sole control if anything ever happened to him. He had known, not the full extent, but enough to sense Marcus wasn't trustworthy. I scanned every page, sent copies to Carol, and put the originals in a safety deposit box under a false name. Now I had leverage. Now I had protection. But then something shifted. Marcus disappeared. Just gone. One day he was still trying to contact banks, fighting the asset freeze, and the next. His phone was dead, no response from his job, nothing. Rachel wouldn't answer my calls. Then I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just a folded sheet of paper. It said, "You should have stayed quiet. You think this is over, but it's just started."
No signature.
That's when I knew this wasn't just about money anymore. This was going to get personal. After I got that letter, I didn't sleep for 2 straight nights. I sat in the living room with the lights off, clutching a flashlight and my hammer, listening, waiting, but nothing came.
Not a sound.
Then, on the 3rd day, Carol called. They found Marcus. He'd been arrested in South Carolina. Turns out the offshore gambling wasn't just gambling, it was connected to a laundering scheme. Marcus had been moving money between phony business accounts tied to a Shell LLC registered in Rachel's maiden name. Carol handed everything over to the state attorney's office. They built their own case fast. Marcus was indicted on multiple charges: wire fraud, financial elder abuse, attempted fraud of a state pension, and conspiracy to falsify medical records. He was brought back to Virginia in cuffs. Rachel showed up at my house the next day. She looked smaller than I remembered. Tired. Makeup smeared. Her hands trembled. She stood on the porch and said, I didn't know how deep he was in. I didn't speak. I just stared. I made mistakes, she said. I know that. But I didn't, Mom. I didn't know he was going to hurt you. I just thought we were taking what was already ours. I laughed. Not loud. Not cruel. Just empty. Because there it was. The truth. She didn't think she was stealing. She thought she was entitled. I was your mother, I said. I gave you everything. She didn't answer. She just started crying. She reached into her purse, pulled out a stack of papers.
It's a statement, she said. I'm testifying.
Against him. They said it might reduce my charges. I took it. Not for her. For me. For court. And then I told her to leave. She turned around and walked back to her car. No apology that mattered. At the trial, Carol sat next to me. Marcus looked smug at first, until the evidence started coming in. The gambling records. The falsified forms. The photos of the man he met in Lynchburg. Then Rachel's testimony. She cried on the stand, told the court everything. How he manipulated her, convinced her I was senile, told her they had to take control before I gave it all away. Marcus got 12 years. Rachel got probation, community service, and a court-ordered psychological evaluation. She sends cards now. I don't answer. But I still kept one thing from her. The pension? I donated a portion to the Railway Workers' Widow Fund. Quietly. Anonymously. The rest I moved into a living trust. It'll go to my grandson, Rachel's boy, when he turns 25. But only if he finishes college and stays clean. My house is mine again. So is my name. My peace. My nights. People ask if I've forgiven them. I haven't. I never will. But I did survive them. And in the end, that's what they never saw coming.